China EVs and more, where my co-host, Lei Xing, 马上回来北京, Lei Xing, and I will go over the week's most important news and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sector. What Lei and I discussed today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners, welcome back. We ask that you please help us get the word out about this podcast to other enthusiasts. And of course, tune in again next week. My name is Tu Li. I am the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can find it on sinoautoinsights.substack.com. And I encourage you all to subscribe to that as well. Lei, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey, good morning. This is your co-host Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review, and this is episode number 167. Happy National Autonomous Vehicle Day. I just found out this is actually a national day today.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, right on.
There's all these different weird days.
As two of the likely few people that have truly ridden in a few of the American and the Chinese ones.
You know where I'm going with this is the fact that Tesla is quote unquote registering to get FSD ready in China. And that's, I guess, where we'll begin this episode.
Devil's in the details.
And I was just watching the new Ito M7 Ultra launch. And here's a quote from Richard Yu. He said, let them come. We'll beat the S out of FSD in China. Basically, this is what he said. And my goodness.
We've been singing the praises specifically because we used one of the systems extensively for 3 days.
Sure.
But I think there's still a lot of people in the West that don't have any clue about the number of systems that are available in China and the quality level of each of those systems.
And, the reason I'm pointing to Richard Yu's comments is because I think many of the CEOs and founders of these smart EV startups, I think they will partially agree with him in the sense that if I were Li Bin, if I were Li Xiang, if I were He Xiaopeng, I'd be open arms to Tesla having the FSD available in China. Whatever the conditions, whatever the restrictions that it'll have, it's just because that's where the competition is and you need to be there to compete, right? So that's what I'm saying.
It tags them now because if FSD is an also ran in China, guess what? It raises the profile of everybody else's system, okay? And I feel confident in saying that FSD is not going to be a clear-cut leader at all in China.
Yeah, agreed. But I think going forward, it's just going to be, a matter of paperwork, I guess, before we actually get to see. And it looks like internally, the first step is for them to have employees internally test that out in China, to have that capability, and then before rolling out to the owners who will be able to purchase. I'm not sure if there will be a subscription model, but I mean
they've had pricing posted on the Chinese website for forever.
Yeah. So that's that.
And really quickly, Lei, I think it'll be a city by city layout. I don't think it's a switch that turns on and FSD is available to every user. I don't think it's going to be like that.
Right. And if we look at Xiaomi, just announced they're pushing out the city NOA next week, and it's only going to be available first in 10 cities, and then before rolling out to additional cities. And one slide that the new Ito M7 launch put up was hundreds of cities from competitor A, B, C, and they put up 4,000 plus cities and towns and Chengzhen, right? So, I mean, and this is where we want to talk about this infatuation with numbers and the competition of these numbers. The latest being BYD's 2.9 liter per 100 kilometer DM tech. And by the way, BYD will take issue with your title, saying it's 1.3 km.
Isn't it 1,300 kilometers? No,
1,300 miles.
Miles. Okay. Oh man. So I fat fingered that. That's my fault. Sorry, BYD. But
Rated. Qualifier is rated.
Rated
Under
so
NEDC.
It's probably
NEDC.
Probably going at 60, less than 60 miles an hour, blah, 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 right? But really quickly, going back to intelligent driving, Pony also just announced that it's going to roll out a service for Beijing that takes you to the train station. And by the end of this year, that should be fully driverless.
Basically, the big three, so which means Baidu, WeRide, and Pony, they have been pretty much at the same time getting the same permits. I think there's like 5 or 6 vehicles among the three that'll start out the testing process first. But we talked about this last or the 2 episodes ago about AVs moving closer to the city center rather than e-zhuang. E-zhuang is like the suburbs, right?
So in a normal day from CBD to e-zhuang, it takes about 45 minutes driving. So that gives you an indication of how far it is from city center. And city center to me is going to be Tiananmen, but also CBD area, Chaoyang district, area, right? Yeah, so, Guomao, right. Okay, fair enough.
Sanlitun is the worst if we talk about traffic, right?
It's gotten better because they turned remember how you used to be able to turn left they turned that into a one-way and they made the barrier now. So it's gotten better. It's still not great, but it's gotten better.
But, on the flip side, we've seen the tough conditions when we drove into Guangzhou with the Xpeng G9's NGP, and we kind of fought over whether you needed to take over or not because of that close call. So, right.
I did, man. No, you'll never convince me that it was going to take care of that.
So, all right. So BYD. Hybrids. I think this past week there's been a lot of news. So BYD, we had the 911 Porsche 911 hybrid. We had Toyota, Mazda, Subaru working on their own kind of next generation
small displacement
engines,
higher efficiency.
We just heard about the Horse powertrain joint venture with Geely and Renault. So a lot of news on the hybrid side of things this week. And a lot of controversy, a lot of beef because of the numbers that were put up by BYD.
So the crazy thing is, Lei, is that I think the legacy automakers, specifically the Toyotas and those that have hybrid technologies, are looking at almost conceding the BEV market in China to the Chinese EV makers, but then leaning heavily into the hybrid stuff because we know that hybrid is going to be a thing. And I've said this before in past podcasts, BEV, PHEV, still a win in my book. And so as we see foreign automakers lean into and launch hybrid vehicles and introduce, BYD comes out and says, guess what? We're going 1,300 miles on a single charge, single tank.
And to be honest, BYD is not the first to come out with a 2,000 kilometer hybrid.
Right.
That there's been other models that have been launched to the market claiming to have that type of range, which is we throw some grain of salt because it's under BYD said it's under NEDC mode. But I think the two things for me was that first of all, these are big vehicles, the Chin L and the CO06. I mean, they're 8+ sedans, which is not a Camry size, but definitely not a Corolla size. It's bigger than the Corolla. And Chin L is the biggest among the Chin variants, right? There's the Chin Pro, there's the Chin Plus, and the Chin L, right? It's a big car, first of all. And second, who are these, the vehicles these two BYDs are targeting are exactly the weak spots of these foreign legacy brands. The Nissan
Totally.
Sylphies, right? The Volkswagen Lavidas, Sagitars. And they sell like 30,000, 40,000 units a month. It's pretty specific what the Qin L and the CO06 is targeting. Is really the stronghold of these foreign legacy brand models in that segment, A plus sedan segment.
And BYD is the only player that is still aggressively launching new products, new engines, new technologies. It's crazy how prolific they are with new features, they're just, it's, yeah.
So in the second half of the year, I mean, we're right about the midpoint of the year, right? BYD still has quite a few, let's just say, max products coming out of their existing vehicles, right? So it's these ever expansion of the variants of their, right? The Qin is one of the top selling models.
And for those listeners that want to get a better understanding of the China market, we're just getting into the groove. The beginning of the year is always a little bit slower. Once we get out of summer, with the exception of October, the first week in October, there's always a mad dash. So look for the intensity on the price war to increase. Look for companies that are struggling to do everything they can, throw the kitchen sink at trying to gain share, get sales, take sales from somebody else. I would venture to guess that Xiaomi, starting in September, October, will also put some incentives in place for the SU7.
Well, they still do with, I think they just announced some incentives for if you order the car before end of June. So that'll continue. And then more recently, right, I was telling you about this national action plan on reducing carbon emissions for 2024 and 2025. And one specific line in that document said to eliminate restrictions of NEV purchase that are in place. Whether that'll happen, I don't know, but it's a directive. But everything is about really adding vitality
and creating less friction.
Yeah. And let's say in the city of Beijing, for example, this is pretty new. This is also recent. If you trade in a China 3 and below ICE for an NEV, you automatically get 10,000 RMB. And if you trade in the similar vehicle for a new ICE EV under 2.0 liter, you get 7,000 RMB. This is the latest in Beijing specifically.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by the constant stream of dire climate news? Turn that concern into action. Tune in to the Climate Confident podcast every Wednesday morning when I bring you good news and real solutions from the front lines of climate action. Whether you're in business, tech, or just passionate about sustainability, the Climate Confident podcast is your weekly dose of optimism and inspiration. Subscribe to Climate Confident on your favourite podcast platform and start your Wednesday with hope and actionable insights.
In easy FX is, let's say, 7-1. A dollar buys me 7 RMB.
Yeah. So it's $1,000, right? At least.
Yeah. 差不多.
Yeah. And the other thing about the beef with the BYD, right? I saw Kevin's Williams article on there's these people media they've already done the test drive, and we had some back and forth with our good friend Danny Lee about we did the same trip from Beijing to Shenzhen in a Qin L. We could do it in one shot.
We need to make more P spots. No, we would still need to take P stop.
Bladder anxiety, right? So
yeah, because Ed Carson had written when the bladder is greater or smaller than the range. So,
but I think still for us, I think the reason of this beef is the 2100 kilometer NEDC mode. Again, it's rated, in order to achieve it, you have to have it under certain conditions. Let's say driving at a certain speed, maybe having your AC at a certain temperature. So there's these caveats that makes it, or it's probably not going to get to the actual 2100 kilometer.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, if it's close, I mean, within 25% of or 75% of the 2100 kilometers, I mean, that's a win, right?
Yeah, it depends
I mean, that's
on
progress.
Yeah, it depends on the how many people are in the car, how much luggage you have, the weight, the total weight of the car, driving conditions, weather. But one thing I was talking about, this beef between Geely and BYD, was on the certificate that they showed of the engine thermal efficiency. So Geely showed one with 46.1%. And then BYD came out with another one saying they could get to 46.5, but they were like, but this is all lab, right? We're just not showing it because it's not in production cars. And to give everyone a sense for this metric, I think the industry consensus is that anything over 40% for thermal efficiency for engine is pretty good, right?
Yep.
So 45%, if you can get to 45%, that's awesome. And
Toyota was the standard for a while. So
yeah.
It sounds to me, Lei, that Geely seems a little jealous.
That's the thing. Everybody's jealous, right? Because everybody next day launches a product that's better than the product that was launched the day before.
And I have to say this, Lei, I was on Autoline yesterday with John McElroy.
So what was that question that you were asked?
Oh man, he dropped a bomb. But let me say this. So, because I still talk to people in Detroit and in the Midwest that still have this caricature view of BYD being these vehicles that wouldn't sell. Remember when they came in 2013, 2014 or whatever to the Detroit Auto Show and their vehicles were kind of trash?
2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. I think they were there 3 or 4 years. Yep.
John during the show said that everyone he talks to now is looking at BYD as a very, very, very serious player and disruptor. So in a really short period of time,
I mean, didn't he drive a dolphin or a seagull?
Yeah, a seagull.
Seagull, right?
And because one of the teardown companies here has gray marketed a seagull over here.
So
you can't drive it on the road, but you can drive it on their facility.
So I know that you're traveling in June to the West Coast and the UK, but there's that CareSoft event, I think in mid-June.
I'm going to miss it.
You know about that event I'm talking about, right? They're showing several Chinese smart EVs, basically.
4 or 5 people ping me. It's like, you're coming, right? And I'm like, no, I can't go.
Well, I don't need to go there, right? Because you don't need to go there because you've seen them, you've driven them. But it'll be cool to kind of see the Western.
Yeah, I would be interested to see reactions for sure, without question.
Sure.
Because there's going to be an American bias, just like there's a German bias. Well, there's only one wiper. There's only this. There's only that. And so someone made a good point to me yesterday. A mutual friend of ours, Lei, and ARPA-E Steve Levine wrote about ARPA-E creating a challenge that says create that $12,000 competitor, right?
That's the other news that we kind of touch upon, because now in the last several days we've seen the 20,000 euro Volkswagen. We've seen Renault trying to work on one, supposedly with the Chinese partner, and then Carlos Tavares was saying that they were coming out with the 25,000 EV.
Here's the thing though, man. if you're talking 2027, that's a lifetime, because
it's right around the corner.
You and I know that it takes 14 months for a Chinese EV maker to go from effectively clean sheet to job one almost. And again, they're using platforms across different products, but whatever it takes. And so 2027, man, for Volkswagen, you might as well get rid of all your anyways.
and not only the time, but also once you get there, based on what we've seen, that often, the $25,000 car becomes a $30,000 car. The $30,000 car becomes a $35,000, right?
I think the most important thing, Lei, is that broad brush. Every major automaker almost is looking at that 25,000 euro or USD price point, which is a win to me because 20 months ago, no one was talking about that. And so you can credit China EV Inc. for this. This is what I want. This is what I've been clamoring for the last 4 years. And so to me, this is progress, because the other thing that I want to point to is the Equinox, which is a $43,000 US dollar vehicle before the $7,500 credit. That's been getting really good reviews. I think there are 2 or 3 US centric media outlets that have reviewed the vehicle. I think Velker actually gave it a thumbs up too. So
better than the Blazer, I guess.
Yeah. So I'll send you a link, but I mean, you can take a look yourself. But the reviews were posted this week, so like yesterday or 2 days ago, and so that's a feather in GM's cap. I applaud them for that, and they need to just do more of this, right?
Yeah, and then we have the Cadillac Optic, the $54,000 in the U.S., and then the Jeep Wagoneer S, $72,000 EV. So we're starting to see.
So Leia, I saw and I'm driving, so I don't have my iPhone out, but I saw Cadillac Escalade Q or whatever they're called, the EV. It is huge. I saw one on the road, M plate, manufacturer.
Didn't we see one in last year's Detroit Auto Show?
Yeah, but I saw one driving. It was in the wild.
Yeah.
So we, again, going back to the Beijing Auto Show, we're seeing a pulse from Legacy Auto and Stellantis leaning in. Tavares, hey, we make a profitable $25,000 EV. Okay, fair enough. And then Nice, was it? Yeah, that Twingo, Renault with the Twingo and I don't know who their Chinese partner is though.
Well, they are making the Dacia Spring with basically JMC, was it?
Yep.
I don't know. It could be with that same partner. I mean, right? It's a small car platform, so
I love that Legacy has kind of woken up, and getting products out there is the most important thing. Whether they suck, I think that's less important than having a dog in the fight, because getting it into people's hands, getting that feedback, and then quickly iterating to make improvements, over the air updates in order to make them more competitive, they'll find out that they can create instant reaction and instant kind of gratification from a customer standpoint, because the software makes it much easier to do that.
And, speaking of China speed, and this is definitely not China speed, more of a China patience. Shout out to NIO finally getting that 150 kilowatt hour battery available for rental, for upgrades starting tomorrow. Yep. And this is coming nearly 4 years after I think this project initiated. They announced the 150 kilowatt hour battery at the 2020 NIO Day, which was held in January of 2021. So it's been 3.5 years. And now the users can finally, have this battery in their vehicles. And supposedly that gets you 1,000 kilometers for a BEV.
Yep.
And they just received a 1.5 billion NIO Power investment. So and 20,000 units. Alfonso just posted, right? It looks like
Jeff, you're listening, right? Jeffrey, you're listening. So.
Hinting 20,000 units for May. So all positive, great positive news for NIO, which we've been kind of negative a little bit on. But hopefully that continues as what type of reaction and the volumes the Ledao unveil is going to get once Q4 rolls around. But And with Li Auto, the L6 just produced the 20,000th vehicle. The Xpeng X9 just delivered the 10,000th vehicle. So, right, they're progressing. But
You're a closer follower to Porsche than I am. Porsche this week had the updated 911
yeah.
unveil. So can you tell us a little bit more
So
about
my take, we had a good comparison because this happened on the same day that BYD launched the fifth generation DMI. So I think whereas BYD, this is definitely about efficiency and fuel savings. I think the 911 hybrid with that Carrera GTS, the hybridization, I don't think it was intended to save gas. I think it was more intended to improve performance. That's my view. Because if you wanted something, you buy a Taycan, right?
Yeah, I don't think you're looking for any efficiencies when you buy a 911. You're looking for
I think there is efficiency, but I think it's more that electric turbocharger is more for performance.
yeah, to eliminate the turbo lag, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I don't know, the GTS rear end looks a little cheap, but
the design, there's been some, I think you and I probably agree, the design of the new 911, both in the front and the back, there's been some interesting tweaks, which you may or may not like.
But you and I joked around with one of our mutual friends that even a bad 911 update is still good in relative terms, because as lover of great vehicles, great design, 911's an all-timer in my book. My dream is to get a nice, slightly used Targa in the next 5-6 years. So hopefully the value or the value goes down on those Targas and I can pick one up for a steal. But anyways, yeah, it's a halo car for them, obviously, that they need to keep in the consciousness of their consumers, but that doesn't move the needle that much in China, unfortunately for them.
No. China's 911 is definitely not, China is not, definitely not a 911 market. That's for sure.
Although if they were to increase sales in China of the 911, it would help them just because the size of the market.
Yeah, I think Porsche over the years, I mean, since they've entered in 2001, more so recently in the last few years, they've trying to push this two-door sports car segment, with the 718, but it's been difficult. I think it's still an SUV, kind of the four-door Panamera dominated market for them.
Well, I mean, the high runners are going to be the Macan. So I think the Macan E is going to be their barometer for success.
We should touch upon a little bit about the dealer revolt.
Yeah, you saw that, right?
Porsche, which forced them to issue a statement, basically saying, we're going to work with you guys and to handle and go through this difficult period of time.
So this is probably the first time ever in Porsche's history
in China.
I would say globally, almost,
maybe,
right?
Yeah,
where dealers are upset because they're holding on to inventory, like expensive inventory, and in China, the metal is just not moving. This should really solidify the concerns for Bluma about their Porsche strategy for China.
And the same thing actually has been going on at BBAs as well. They're still enjoying huge volumes, but I think BMW issued similar new policies for their dealers just recently, similar to what's happening with Porsche, that they're giving them incentives or policies such that, like inventory, how much they had to pay. I don't know the details, but they did something recently.
So to create context, Lei, ABB, Audi, Beamer, Benz, traditionally in the China market, they're all about 750 to 850, 900,000 units a year. And so the China market is normally between 30, 35, 36% of their global sales. Porsche, I think they sold 300 and something thousand units globally.
Just say 300,000 last year. Yeah.
Yeah, 300,000 last year. And so the China market, I think, is
90,000 roughly.
Yeah. So just to create some context here. So when there's a 25% drop in sales, that's pretty significant. And remember that they have factories in Stuttgart and Zwickau. So if you're taking 20% of demand out of these factories, again, now you're paying for employees that are sitting idle. And so these are really, really huge concerns for Volkswagen Group and should be for ABB, right?
Another tidbit that's been interesting is if you remember 2 years ago, Apple announced that new CarPlay, and supposedly Porsche was the first OEM to have
Yes, please. That. Yes, please.
And it hasn't happened, right?
Yep.
So that's also interesting.
So I might be able to meet with a couple of companies and a couple of people while I'm in California, and I'll try to find out a little bit more about that stuff. Okay.
Cool.
One of the features that they highlighted in the video, and the video was a little cheesy with the floating words. The Matt Watson part was pretty entertaining. I like Matt Watson, but it was just a little cheesy. Whoever the creative agency that they used to produce that video, I just thought.
Oh, you're talking about the 911.
The 17-minute, the 17-minute video, but they highlighted how there's 6 screens. Is there 6? Did they say 6? Anyways, I know you have to run, Lei. Is there anything else we want to talk about?
I'm good. No, I don't have to rush that much.
I'm kind of curious, and I want to get my hands on an Equinox myself because, as you know, Lei, I'm in the market for a new car very soon. So
the Model Y 0.99 financing ends today, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be something else going on too. But the one thing that's pretty interesting that I read that I put in the newsletter was that California taxes for gasoline sales. And the irony of it is that to pay for road maintenance. And so it's mostly the revenue from gas tax that pays for the road maintenance. And because EV adoption is still pretty high in California, they're losing a lot of revenue to repair the roads. And so they're looking at a mileage tax now and are going to charge and looking and are going to pilot a new tax program that charges for the number of miles driven. And so, wow, that's pretty progressive, but it penalizes the EV players too, not the EV drivers, not just the petrol drivers now.
That makes me think of what's going on in China, given the current economic environment, the bloodbath, and these local incentives that I just talked about, Beijing being one example, is Beijing currently has this quota, not the lottery, or maybe it is a lottery, where there's a certain number of vehicles per year that the consumers can buy. And recently I've heard discussions about lifting that altogether. And imagine for the city of Beijing, which had a goal of this so-called blue sky, and they try to cap the motor vehicle park at below 6 million units. It's already over 6 million, by the way. And at the same time, trying to drive vitality into the economy, one way of doing it is giving these incentives to buy NEVs. At the same time, there's congestion problem. So it's a difficult conundrum. I mean, it's similar to what California is facing right now, right?
Yeah. The last couple times I've been to California, the 101, the 880 have been parking lots, unfortunately. And so it's taken me, historically, obviously, I drove the 101 every day almost, the 880 almost every day as well when I lived there. So time frames to get from point A to point B, where I would normally go in the past, have kind of doubled. And it actually, it's painful, extremely painful to get from point A to point B. Now, a couple of administrative things. Next week, in Michigan, that train station is officially opening. Remember, we got to tour that?
Yeah, it was already 2 years ago. Almost 2 years ago, September.
So now it's officially opening on June 6th. There's going to be a concert. There's going to be
You're gonna be there?
tours, and so
Check it out.
So I work next door a couple days a week.
Might as well.
At that innovation lab. So I'll try to stop by. But it's a big thing for the city of Detroit. I'm happy to say that it's a reason to come down to the city now. Grand Prix is going to happen this weekend, I think, and so
The Dream
and then
Cruise, that's usually in August or
in July.
Right.
And then the
Woodward, right?
NFL draft was a huge success in Detroit. So now I'm going to put my tourism hat on and say, for those that are wondering about the city of Detroit, you can ask Lei. It's improved significantly, and it's worth a visit.
The week I spent in September 2022 was memorable.
It's fun, right?
Yeah, it was
Lions game. That's right. And we saw the world champions because we saw Detroit play the Eagles.
And the interesting thing for the last 2 years is every time we met, the next
team,
there's always a better week.
Yeah.
Right? You think that was fun, and then we had the September last year in Munich, and then just more recently in China with this road trip. I mean,
it's because we have the cheat sheet or the inside track on a lot of that stuff. So
yeah. Speaking of logistics, so I will be in China again most of June and the first half of July. So for the time being, I think 9 a.m. still works for me, which is 9 p.m. my time. Let's stick with that. But you're going to be on the West Coast and in London, in the UK, for the latter half of June, right? So we'll figure out, when we do these live episodes.
Yes, for sure. So for summer, so let's do this, Lei. Let's just say that our summer hours might be changing,
Off,
but we will let you know. We will let you know for sure. And let me look at a few comments. So Peter Leo, I test drove Xpeng G9 last December in Wuxi. I input destination by voice, and the car took over and did everything for 10 kilometers, including highway, city streets, parking, and my parking space in the garage. So, Peter, we had similar experience, not many issues. Jeffrey loved you, Lei, your article on legacy article on battery swap. And then Peter says, no manual intervention. And I'll open it up for any questions that anyone has.
Yeah, just to stress that we've talked about this, quite a few times, that battery swapping is a thing in China. It works.
Yes.
Right? If anybody still doubts it, I mean, we've seen it, we've visited, and it's expanding. It'll be interesting to see where this expanded partnerships go and how much utilization we're going to see from other brands at the NIO battery swapping stations.
And then Alan, GM and Ford, I thought we're supposed to get native NACS charge plugs in 2025 model year vehicles. So starting later this year. I believe that's your question. I don't see anything else. So Lei, appreciate you doing a bit of overtime, sir.
Yeah, sure.
I know you have something going on with your daughter.
But
everyone, thanks again for joining. I thought this was going to be a short one, but it ended up being quite...
it was good. An hour.
Yeah, quite interactive, so it's good.
Yeah. And I will talk to you next from China again.
And yeah, so anyways, man, hey, we'll talk on DMs anyways, but
Sure.
travel safe. And everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We will talk with you all next week.
Yep. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lee, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.